photograph of the raising of the American flag on top of Mount Suribachi at Iwo Jima is probably one of the most iconic ones of the Second World War. It was printed on almost every newspaper in the United States and became so popular that the men in the photograph were asked to support a war bond campaign. But did you know that the flag in the photograph was not the first one to be raised, and that the first flag raising is considered to be even more important than the second one? In this video, we will dive into the complete story of the two flag raisings on top of Mount Suribachi. And even more interesting, almost all of it was caught on camera. While we work on this puzzle, let me introduce you to our sponsor for this video, MyHeritage. MyHeritage is the #1 family history service. We decided to collaborate with MyHeritage because they are linked to more than 19 billion historical documents that help us when we research World War II veterans for our videos, and can help you to learn more about your family history. With MyHeritage, you can easily create and manage your family tree, which is a lot of fun. Before using MyHeritage, I had no idea about my paternal family history, as no one ever created a family tree. After putting in the information of my great-grandfather in my family tree, the Instant Discoveries feature showed an instant record match, and with that I found out that my great-grandfather took the last name of his mother instead of his father, as the father is unknown. This was something no one in my family knew. Because MyHeritage is linked to billions of documents and other family trees, the Instant Discoveries feature instantly matched my information to those billion documents. So after that, I was able to track down the ancestors with my last name all the way back to the 1800s. Apparently my direct ancestor, 7 generations removed, lived in this street. The great thing about this is that you can do all of this yourself if you sign up with MyHeritage today by clicking the link in the description for a 14-day free trial, and enjoy all the amazing features MyHeritage has to offer. Now let's go back to Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima is a small volcanic island 660 miles south of Tokyo. It's 2 miles wide and 4 miles long. By October 1944, the United States began bombing runs on the Japanese home islands with their long-range B-29 bombers. The problem was that the Japanese fighter planes would intercept these bombers and attack US positions in the Marianas from Iwo Jima. And so it was determined that Iwo Jima had to be captured. After months of naval and air bombardments, 2 US Marine divisions of around 20,000 men each invaded Iwo Jima on February 19, 1945. The 18,000 Japanese defenders on the island were dug into bunkers deep within the volcanic rocks. The unit that raised the American flag on Mount Suribachi was the 28 Marines of the 5th Marine Division. They landed on Green Beach, and within 4 days they had cut off the Japanese forces above ground from the rest of Iwo Jima. On the morning of February 23rd, the time had come to ascend the 554 feet Mount Suribachi. A 4-man reconnaissance patrol of F Company reported the absence of enemy forces on the hill to the 2nd Battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Johnson, who then ordered Lieutenant Harold Schreier to lead the 3rd Platoon of Company E of the 28 Marines up the summit to secure the crater and raise a 54 by 28-inch American flag that would serve as a morale booster for the Marines on the island. Sergeant Louis Lowry, a photographer of Leatherneck magazine, accompanied the Marines to document the patrol with his Rolleiflex twin-lens camera. Schreier led the patrol starting at 0800, and the Marines worked their way up the steep northern slope, sometimes resorting to crawling on hands and knees. Marines all over the island were able to observe and track the progress of the patrol. They momentarily disappeared from view when Schreier and his men reached the top. Lieutenant Schreier, Platoon Sergeant Ernest Thomas, Sergeant Henry Hansen, Charles Lindbergh and Philip Ward worked to attach the flag to the makeshift pole, while Lowery photographed their efforts. Another man appeared touching the flagpole. His name is Pharmacist Mate 2nd Class John Bradley. Sergeant Hansen and Private 1st Class Raymond Jacobs, a radio man from F Company, gazed at the American flag as Bradley and Ward attempt to stabilize the flagpole. There it was. It was around 10:20 in the morning, and on the summit the stars and stripes fluttered in the Pacific wind. Private First Class Louis Charlo and Private First Class James Mitchells were both wrongly identified as individuals who helped to raise the first flag. Louis Charlo was a member of the Recon Patrol by F Company prior to the first flag raising and later returned to the summit as security reinforcement prior to the second flag raising. He was visible in photographs of George F. Burns and Louis Burmeister. Charlo would be killed in action on Iwo Jima March 2nd, 1945. James Mitchells was previously identified as a raiser of the first flag due to his prominent positioning in Louis Lowry's photograph immediately after the event. Both Sergeant Ernest Thomas and Henry Hansen, identified as individuals who raised the first flag, were both killed in action. Sergeant Thomas was killed on March 3rd and Henry Hansen was killed on March 1st. As the American flag fluttered atop Mount Suribachi, cheers erupted among the troops on Iwo Jima. Navy ships sounded their horns in celebration. As memorable and important as the initial flag raising was to the men fighting on the island, it remained unknown to the general public. Just 3 hours later, a pivotal decision unfolded. The 5th Marine Division commander recognized the potential for boosting morale by ensuring the American flag was more clearly visible. Rumors circulated that Secretary of the Navy, James V. Forrestal, upon seeing the first flag raising, had requested a souvenir. But Lieutenant Colonel Johnson, the 2nd Battalion commander, reportedly denied any such requests. Following Johnson's orders, a larger flag, measuring an impressive 96 by 56 inch, was entrusted to Private First Class René Gagnon. Carrying not just the symbol but the hopes of a nation, Gagnon ascended the heights with fresh radio batteries. On his way, he encountered a 4-man patrol led by Sergeant Schrank, Corporal Harlan Block, Private First Class Ira Hayes, and Private First Class Franklin Sousley. Simultaneously, Sergeant Robert Campbell and Sergeant William Genoust received orders from the head of the 5th Marine Division's Photographic section to ascend Mount Suribachi. Their mission? To capture the unfolding events at the summit. Joining them was Joe Rosenthal, an Associated Press photographer. As Rosenthal ascended, another key figure, Louis Lowry, the photographer responsible for capturing the first flag raising, was descending. In a perilous encounter, a Japanese soldier lobbed a grenade in Lowry's direction. Attempting to evade the explosion, he managed to escape harm but suffered damage to his camera. Miraculously, the film roll, preserving the visual history of the first flag raising, remained intact. Bill Genoust, with his camera rolling, skillfully captured the preparations for the second flag and took the only moving footage of the first flag. Bill Genoust's footage abruptly cut to the historic moment of the second flag being raised atop Mount Suribachi. Joe Rosenthal took his photograph as the second flag went up. Campbell photographed the first flag as it was lowered, but did not capture the second flag as it was raised. Two days later, on a Sunday morning, the American public awoke to Joe Rosenthal's powerful image in their newspapers, forever etching the flag raising on Mount Suribachi into the collective consciousness. The second flag raising on top of Mount Suribachi might have faded into obscurity if not for the iconic photograph by Mr. Joe Rosenthal. While the first flag raising held a special place in the hearts of all Marines, it was Joe Rosenthal's lens that ensured the enduring legacy of the second flag raising, immortalizing the moment and preserving it for future generations. Over the last decades, several members of E Company were identified as the famous flag raisers. The powerful image captured by Joe Rosenthal stirred a sensation on the home front, prompting a swift response from President Franklin D. Roosevelt. In the wake of this historical photograph, the flag raisers were recalled from the battlefield to participate in the 7th Warlone Drive. Private First Class René Gagnon, who played a pivotal role in carrying the second flag to the summit, returned in April 1945. He took on the responsibility of identifying his fellow flag raisers as Hansen, Bradley, Strank, Sousley, and Hayes. Tragically, it was discovered that Hansen, Strank, and Sousley had been killed in action, while Bradley was wounded and evacuated. The prevailing belief was that the three men were the sole survivors from Rosenthal's photograph. Despite decades passing since the flag raising on Mount Suribachi, the identity of the individuals in Joe Rosenthal's photograph remained a subject of ongoing controversy. Over the last 70 years, various individuals have stepped forward and continue to assert that those identified may not have been the actual flag raisers. One of the earliest challenges to the identified flag raisers came from Belle Block, the mother of Harlan Block. She contested that the official identification, asserting that her son Harlan Block and not Henry Hansen was at the base of the flagpole during the iconic moment. Tragically, Harlan Block had been killed in action on March 1st, 1945. In response to the concerns raised by Belle Block and other families, a board was convened at Marine Corps headquarters in December 1946 to investigate the matter. This early inquiry marked the beginning of a series of investigations and debates that would unfold over the following decades, further complicating the historical narrative surrounding the flag raising on Mount Suribachi. In 1947, the Del Valle board findings concluded that it was on position number 1, indeed Corporal Harlan Block at the base of the flagpole. In 2015, a fresh inquiry was initiated following the presentation of persuasive evidence by history enthusiasts Stephen Foley and Matthew Hansen. Their findings challenged the presence of John Bradley in the iconic photograph. The following year, in 2016, a panel led by Lieutenant General Jan Thulai undertook a thorough examination. They concluded that on position 1, it was still Harlan Block, on 2 was still René Gagnon, on 3, it was concluded that John Bradley was actually Private First Class Franklin Sousley, first thought to be in position number 5. He was seen in photographs atop Mount Suribachi wearing an empty canteen cover, a cartridge belt without suspenders, wire cutters, and a soft cover under his helmet. He is not seen wearing a field jacket and his trousers are not cuffed. His gear is identical to that of the Marine in position number 3. In addition, there is a moment in Janoust's film where his face is briefly seen and looks like Sousley. In position number 4 it remains Sergeant Michael Strank. On position number 5, which was previously identified as Franklin Sousley, now seen in position number 3, was actually Private First Class Harold Schultz, who had not been identified before. Two key pieces helped to simplify the identity: a broken helmet liner strap and the right front pocket. Only one Marine that day had a broken helmet liner strap hanging from the left side of his helmet: Private First Class Harold Schultz, also of E Company. And, just as significantly, the Marine in position number 5 had a distinctive rifle. The sling of it was attached to the stacking swivel, not the upper hand guard sling swivel, as was appropriate. Again, photographs and motion pictures showed that the only Marine with a sling attached in that manner was Schultz. Further analysis showed that both Schultz and the Marine in position number 5 had a bulge in the right front pocket of his field jacket. However, what remains puzzling is that no previous claim of Schultz as a flag raiser had been found. The Marine in position number 6 remained Ira Hayes. Lastly, in 2019, a board led by Brigadier General Bowers concluded that the Marine in position number 2 was actually Corporal Harold P. Keller. The determination was based on visual comparisons with George F. Burns' photograph and Joe Rosenthal's Gung Ho photograph, where Keller was previously identified. Facial similarities, distinctive creases in the Marine's utility coat formed by double bandoliers, and the unique folds and camouflage pattern of his M1 helmet cover all played pivotal roles in the positive identification. Additional validation came from a letter written to his wife on March 31, 1945. The ongoing revelation led to the removal of Hansen and Bradley's names as second flag raisers. However, it is essential to acknowledge their integral role in the raising of the first flag, a moment considered even more significant by those fighting on Iwo Jima. The photograph symbolizes the collective efforts of all Marines, sailors, and Coast Guard men during the intense Battle of Iwo Jima and the broader Pacific Campaign. Perhaps, in the grand scope of history, the emphasis should not solely rest on individual identities, but on the unity and bravery displayed by those who served. Dr. Brienne Robertson and Paul Westmeyer, contributors to an academic volume on the flag raising, argue that the true importance lies not in the individual identities of its participants, but in its extraordinary ability to inspire Marines and civilians alike to embrace and emulate the model of citizenship epitomized by that iconic scene on Mount Suribachi. On the morning of the flag raising, Secretary of the Navy James V. Forrestal stood at the railing of the USS El Dorado, staring at the beaches of Iwo Jima. He entered a landing craft with General Holland Smith and were on their way to Red Beach when a crew member pointed to the Marines hoisting the flag atop Mount Suribachi. Apparently, in that remarkable moment, Forrestal turned to Smith and uttered profound words. "Holland, the raising of that flag on Suribachi means a Marine Corps for the next 500 years. Ira Hayes was a Pima native Indian. After the Marine Corps, he suffered from post-traumatic stress and descended into alcoholism. People would call him a hero all the time, while he struggled with the deaths of his fellow Marines. He died of exposure to cold and alcohol poisoning after a night of drinking on January 23-24, 1955. Peter Lafarge wrote a song about him called The Ballad of Ira Hayes, which was covered by Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan. While all photographers reveled in the impact of their work on the home front, one man remained unaware of the monumental effect. Motion picture cameraman Bill Janoust, despite capturing the historic flag raising, never had the chance to witness the profound impact of his footage. Tragically, Janoust was reported killed in action on Iwo Jima on March 4, 1945. His last moments were outside a cave entrance where it was believed he was hit and struck down by machine gun fire from inside the cave. To this day, the remains of Bill Janoust remain uncovered, a poignant reminder of the ultimate sacrifice made by those who sought to document the realities of war. His legacy endures not only in the footage that he left behind, but also in the memory of his unwavering dedication to capturing the essence of history, even at the cost of his own life. In 36 days of fighting on the island, nearly 7,000 US Marines were killed. Another 20,000 were wounded. Of the 18,000 Japanese soldiers, US Marines captured a little over 200 Japanese soldiers. The rest were killed in action. The island was finally declared secured on March 26, 1945. It had been one of the bloodiest battles in Marine Corps history. Securing Iwo Jima prepared the way for the last and largest battle in the Pacific, the invasion of Okinawa. May we never forget. If you enjoy our videos and want some exclusive behind-the-scenes content, or take a look at the archive materials we used for this video, make sure to sign up to our Patreon page to support us for only $3 a month. You'll get access to a bunch of great stuff, including a military history-loving community. You will also be able to join polls to influence titles, thumbnails, and video ideas. Head over to patreon.com/snafuducks and I'll see you there. Also, make sure to check out MyHeritage, who sponsored this video. Click the link in the description below for a 14-day free trial and start building your family tree today.